today what I'd love to share with you are the 3 tips that I believe are really important to be able to build and also maintain motivation. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you feel like you've just lost your mojo. It's kind of like I'm a bit tired, I don't know why I'm doing this, I feel a bit depleted, I've lost direction, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day, I'm on a treadmill, and these are common feelings for all of us in life at different times. And part of this live is designed to help you figure out where is it in the system that I've lost my motivation, and what do I need to do specifically to rekindle that, because who agrees feeling motivated and uplifted and fulfilled is something that's really rewarding. And it's a place that we all would like to be. So let's get started. 3 main reasons that we lose motivation. The first main reason, if you can imagine now, you're hopping in your car, you're about to drive to a friend's house, and you put your key in the engine and you go to start the ignition and your petrol tank is empty. If you can imagine that scenario, a bit like motivation, you're not actually going anywhere if you haven't got any fuel. It just doesn't happen. Now for us, we always assume that our fuel tank is our body health, and yes, that's part of it. You know, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not exercising, yes, that impacts our energy levels and our fuel for sure. But how many of you have a good night's sleep and wake up and still feel tired? How many of you eat well and get some exercise but still feel drained? So our physical health is only one part of our fuel tank, and there are many different components, and the 2 that I like to talk about the most are our emotional fuel tank and our mental fuel tank. So when these are low, our emotional fuel tank can get depleted and run out of energy when we feel like we've been navigating some setbacks in life and we feel like we've been behind a mask for a little while, pretending that we're okay, saying to everybody else that we're fine, but really feeling exhausted by that and wanting to go home and take off the mask and just lie on the lounge. So emotional depletion is part of our fuel tank, and it really makes sense to ensure that you've got really great strategies to calm your emotional system, to make sure your emotions aren't always heading into a place of depletion, but learning to be able to become from a place of renewal. And that is nervous system calming techniques, which I love to talk about. So emotional systems sometimes are a bit low, which means you can eat well, sleep well, do all the right things with your body, but if you're emotionally tired, you still won't have any motivation. The next part of your fuel tank is your mental health or your mind clarity. And this is why I love to talk about the parallel train tracks that we need: a clear mind and an open heart, a clear mind and an open heart. I'll say it again, a clear mind and open heart, because these are the things that help generate our momentum outside of our obvious body health. So when our mind is depleted, it's when we have too many tabs open in the brain. If you can imagine your computer, if it's got 30 tabs, my computer screen at the moment has about 30 tabs open, I will confess. But when you've got 30 tabs open in your screen of your mind starts running on overdrive. And so we need to learn how to close down loops, which is meaning that we can create more efficiency in our mind space. So part of that is impacting our mind health. The other part of our mind health, of course, is getting stuck in the story. Now, how many of us tell ourselves the story of why all this is going wrong, and the drama and the chaos, and you know, the victim and the villain, and all of these stories that our mind creates, and sometimes we get stuck looping there. I don't know if you've ever done that. I have. I think we're all human. It's not uncommon, but the longer we stay there, the longer we stall. So part of it is learning techniques to be able to press pause on the story and start finding solutions so that you have a clear mind, which builds your momentum and your motivation. So the first part of losing motivation, the first key step is to ensure you've got enough fuel with your body, with your emotions, and with your mindset. Now, it might be that all of that's working for you, but you get in your car and you start the engine and you've got fuel in the tank, but you don't know where you're driving. And somebody's told you to turn left, somebody else has told you to turn right, somebody else has told you to go north, and then somebody else has said you go south. You drive in a circle all day and land back where you are, where you started, and think, I haven't got anywhere. I'm just back to the beginning. And so that is a real indicator of lack of direction. And we all need our own personal direction. And that means learning to understand what your vision is, learning to understand what brings you joy. And guess what? You've got permission to seek joy in your life. You've got permission for that. And this is part of what I teach in understanding selfish leadership. Selfish leadership, it sounds like a negative experience, but it's actually not. Selfish leadership is learning to choose what lights you up. That's not to say we don't still need to do the laundry or drop the kids off at school or cook dinner. That's not it. It's learning to dedicate a part of your day or your week or your life to something that brings you fulfillment, you. And sometimes our direction or what we need has been buried under everybody else for so long that we've kind of forgotten how to do that. So, and that leads to a loss of motivation because it's like, well, I don't even know where I'm driving now. So can I be bothered? Probably not. So getting very clear on what brings you fulfillment, what is your direction, because as soon as you're clear on that, guess what? Then you're better at setting boundaries. Then you're better at delegating. Then you're better at deciding what to say no to. And this is all a part of embracing mind-hearted leadership, which means we're clear in our direction, we're clear in setting boundaries, we can communicate with heart without resentment, guilt, or things flying in the way. So fuel in the tank is essential, but also so is your direction. So they're the first two steps. The next final step in building and maintaining motivation is to have an action plan for when you hit a speed bump. So it might be that you've got fuel, it might be that you know where you're driving, but suddenly there's a speed bump or there's a road detour or something that goes wrong. And who has a life where everything's like a smooth open freeway? It just doesn't happen, right? There's always a detour, there's always a speed bump, and there are things that happen when we hit speed bumps. And I can say this from experience because I hit a health speed bump last week, which is why there wasn't a live, and part of my job over the last week is to be able to get my mindset back on track. And so when we hit a speed bump, what's the action plan? Do we circle in a story of like nothing ever works for me, I'm hopeless, this is never going to work? Do we spiral down that pathway? Do we start blaming everybody else around us, our environment, our next door neighbor, our boss? Like what is it that we start doing when we hit a speed bump, and can we implement something else? Which is getting very clear on the words that you use for yourself. Now, I don't know if anybody saw in the chat, in the group, I posted an interview with Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozi, and ultimately one of the things that Tony brings up in this interview is a really interesting concept of our words create our reality. And Tony mentioned a time where he was going through a divorce, and he was saying to himself, I've got to start all over again. You know, I've got to start all over again. I've got to start all over again with my finances. That's been demolished. I've got to start all over again with where I'm living. I've got to start all over again with maybe a new relationship down the track. And you can see that the words I've got to start all over again are not very empowering. And as soon as he turned it around and said, I get to start afresh. I get to start afresh. Can you see that those two sentences describe the same experience, yet the energy around them are two very different things? I've got to start all over again. I get to start afresh. So when you hit a speed bump, it is very important to pay attention to how you're describing that experience to yourself and to others. And can you change your language to make it a more empowering perspective? Because that in itself will give you energy. Who agrees that I've got to start all over again just feels like draining? Oh my God, really? I've got to start all over again? That's I don't know if I can be bothered. I get to start afresh has a whole different energy that helps maintain motivation. So it's not just about having fuel in the tank. It's not just about having clear direction. It's about having an action plan of when you hit a speed bump, because you will hit a speed bump. We all hit them. It's normal. And part of it is understanding what words am I using? What vision have I got for myself so I can stay back on track? Can I calm my nervous system from a place of dysregulation where I feel chaotic and out of control and overwhelmed? Can I calm that right down so that I can start to choose my pathway forward rather than react? So the three key steps: fuel in the tank, not just sleeping well, not just eating well, understanding your mindset, your mind health, your emotional health, understanding these things to make sure that the fuel is in your tank. Next step, number 2, having a clear direction that gives you fulfillment. Not just running around doing things for everybody else all the time or for your business or whatever it is, but making sure that you're clear on that. And number 3, what's your action plan when you hit a speed bump? Because we all hit them.